Hi there, Zen Jen Pet Specialists, and today we are back with Cat Chat with our friend Steven and his most beautiful cat, Jenny, who likes to join us on these sessions. Welcome back, Steven and Jenny.
Thank you very much. Jenny's glad to be back as well, as am I.
I love how she always walks in and joins us. It's like she does not want to miss out on this very important information we are about to share.
Absolutely. And for those who don't know, she is, or if you're just listening to this, she's on my shoulder at the moment, and she's blind from birth and super well adjusted, and fairly brave.
Yeah.
Not afraid of very much, to be honest.
She's amazing. I watch her walk around your apartment and hop up. You leave, she gets up on your chair. You would have no idea that she was blind at all unless she told me. And you can tell, you can feel her confidence, which says a lot for you as dad, because, you've got to help her feel safe. So obviously you've created an environment for her where she just feels totally comfortable and safe. And who needs eyes? Amazing.
Right, exactly. And she, to be honest and fair, she has spatial memory, and she engages in what I believe is spatial mapping. As an example, I don't want to get off topic, but she'll come down a set of stairs that even one she hasn't been on. If I'm visiting, relatives, she'll get to the bottom step and leaps off because she knows she's on the bottom step.
That's incredible. Yeah, amazing. It also is a good reminder that there's so much more ways to experience the world without just what we see, right? Like we have other ways. We got to really trust and tap into that kind of stuff and she's a good example of that. That's amazing.
We've had her for 9 years. She's just taught us so much.
And anyway, as animals do, right? As animals do.
Yeah.
If we're paying attention, we can learn so much. So today we are going to talk about behavior. We're going to stay on the topic of behavior, and we've covered learned behavior. We've covered innate behavior, but today we're going to get into fear, anxiety, stress, and you like to add in that word conflict. So this is good. This is something that you feel passionate about helping people with their cat. So can we kind of start with breaking down what exactly we mean by fear behavior in a cat?
Sure. And I should just mention that one of the reasons this is important to me, besides the obvious, which is the natural desire to reduce these negative emotions in our animals, but it's also it has to do with survival. Euthanasia in the United States remains the #1 cause of death for cats and dogs. And even though my shelter, which is an open admission, high volume shelter, does not euthanize for space, to the extent that an animal is afraid, it makes them less adoptable, means length of stay increases, chances of illness increases. And in many parts of the country, no place is immune. The risk of euthanasia goes up.
Wow. Yeah.
So, reducing these emotions is really about saving lives.
Yeah. That's a big deal. Big deal.
And in the home, obviously, it's connected not only to helping families and people feel happier with their cats and having the cats feel happier, but it also reduces surrender, owner surrender, which is the process by which the cat goes back to a shelter and becomes at risk for all those things.
Yeah. So this is great information for just the average person who's maybe adopting a new cat. It's also great for those that maybe have a cat rescue business who can help on that end of it. People that are maybe working with feral cats. I think this information will be helpful. Very helpful.
And to your question, the types of fear-based behaviors that we see typically are cats who are under-socialized. This is cats who have not had enough human contact in the early part of their life. That window of opportunity, some people will tell you it ends at 4 months of age. That's not really true, but it does get significantly harder. Then there are cats who actually, it's not fear of people per se, it's just environmental nervousness. It's cats who on some level think of themselves as closer to being prey as opposed to being a predator. And they're worried, that something is going to come get them. And of the 38 species of cats in the world, ours are one of the few that are in fact both predator and prey. So there's that type of fear. There's also fear-based behaviors that are connected to their own species. That this has to do with cats meeting other cats. They're not as social as dogs are. They're not pack animals in the sense that dogs are. And so cat-to-cat introductions and how challenging that can sometimes be is connected to fear and anxiety. And then there is the extent to which cats can be conflicted, sometimes about things like petting. Overstimulation and petting-induced aggression, it has a fear or anxiety component, anxiety confliction. And there are, some other fear-based behaviors too. Separation anxiety is a real thing. And some cats express their anxieties in other ways, like stress grooming, over grooming due to stress.
Yes.
Sometimes going outside the litter box that can be connected to separation anxiety is another behavior. So that's kind of an overview.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little about the environmental piece where you were talking about being the how cats are both prey and predator, and you had mentioned before to me in previous talks about this kind of scale. Your cat's going to fit in that scale. It's either going to be maybe on the lower end of prey, or maybe it's higher up and sees itself as a predator. And I find now I look at my cats and I'm kind of putting them in their place and seeing where they're both very predator like, but just like they like to sit up high and be kind of over everything. Is that like a kind of a good sign of a predator cat? What would represent what would represent a cat that's maybe on the lower prey side? How would they behave?
Well, yeah, they're going to be just generally more environmentally nervous, and by that I mean any sort of stimulus that they're not used to is going to make them nervous, whether that's a car horn, a siren, a door slamming, the vacuum cleaner, a new person still counts as that type of stimulus. And any of those kind of novel stimuli can be viewed as viewed by the cat as a potential threat. And so we see that kind of behavior in all aspects of the cat's life, as opposed to simply being about human contact.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Good. And then the next category you brought up was under socializing, or their fear of humans, which kind of is going to put you into like that feral cat. Is there a way, or is it possible to take a feral cat that's maybe 2 years old? What are the odds of getting that cat into a home or socialized with humans and feeling at all comfortable?
Honestly, the chances of that are pretty low. One way in which it may happen is there's a stray cat outside. It won't let you touch him or her, but they will approach the area for food. And you start feeding the cat with no expectations and no timeline. And you provide kind of ritualized behavior. You feed at the same time every day. The cat knows this. The cat makes sure that his rounds include your place at the appropriate time. And some cats will make a decision, either incrementally or in some cases suddenly, but usually with this sort of situation, it's incremental, where they become more trusting. But because an adult cat who is effectively stuck on the pathway of socialization at a feral or semi-feral sort of condition, it's very hard for them to make the decision to allow themselves to interact with people in a more direct way. It's just much harder. But I can tell you, I've seen it happen. I have a friend who did it with a neighborhood cat who was incapable of being touched. And it took a year. And that cat made that decision. But we can't make predictions about any individual cat in that condition. Where we can make predictions about a 6-week-old, 8-week-old, 10, 12, even 14-week-old kitten. At those ages, we can make specific predictions that are generally accurate.
Yeah. That's great. You know what? You said something there that really stuck out to me, which is if you're going to do this kind of interaction where you're going to put food out for a feral animal, having no expectations and no timeline. Because when you go out with that energy of, I'm going to catch you, I'm going to catch you, I'm going to catch you, they feel that. They know that you're after them, and it's going to make it a lot harder. And if you can just accept them for how they are and that this is possibly all they're going to be, which is perfectly fine, then it kind of does give them that chance to say, well, maybe I can trust you. Maybe I can come around you a bit more. Maybe not come sit in your lap, but, add you to my route of, feed, as you had suggested there.
Right. And to your point, cats read body language. And if you have expectations, your expectations are going to be in your body language.
Yes.
You're going to be like, come on, kitty, come here.
Yes.
I come here, and you start just doing all these things that tells the cat, whoa, back off. I'm not ready for that. And if you just, it's all, and you're really good about talking about this, Jen, in terms of talking about communication with animals and having boundaries and expectations and not communicating our anxiety to animals. Mm-hmm. And that includes not communicating our expectations or having, the expectations that invariably changes our body language.
It does, yeah. And expectations and anxiety are pretty close together. So if you can release your expectations, you'll find your anxiety kind of subsides as well, because you're kind of like, I don't know what's going to happen. So that's very helpful. And they can smell it. There's the whole piece of body language, but we also release hormones and chemicals in our bodies when we're feeling different ways. And dogs and cats and probably horses and all kinds of other animals can smell us coming and know our intentions. So we really want to make sure that we're in that right space.
I used to I would joke with clients sometimes, and I would say, imagine if you knew the smell of every single person you've ever met.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're like, oh, I know you. We met back. It was years ago. Nice to smell you again. Yeah. And so this is a big way that cats communicate. They have an extra scent organ in the roof of their mouth. We don't have. And it allows the chemical transmission of scents that otherwise that have no impact on the nose.
Wow.
And so there's a lot of stuff going on there.
Yeah, that's incredible. I had no idea that they had that. That's super cool. Okay, so the last one here that we want to talk about is overstimulation, which brings into that stress or conflict that you had mentioned. So tell us a little bit about what overstimulation is for a cat and how it affects them.
Sure. And, I would just mention, I've seen, prospective adopters come to a cat who's maybe a little bit fearful, and they do that expectation behavior. Oh, let me pet you. Right. And what does the cat do? So they start getting into this, back and forth sort of push me, pull you sort of thing, where I always suggest, let's just make an offering. Put some treats on your finger, and with your palm open, just go forward and let the cat sniff with no expectation that you're going to pet. Just offer a gift. Mm-hmm. So to your question, some cats enjoy petting, some tolerate petting, but some cats, regardless of which category they're in, they hit a time limit where the petting doesn't feel good anymore and they become conflicted. And this is typically represented often by body language on the part of the cat that gives you a heads up that this isn't going well. Typically their tail starts to swish back and forth. Their pupils may dilate. Their ears may go sideways or back. Their whiskers may go flat against their face. Sometimes their skin will actually ripple. Or if you're petting along their back or side, their head turns and follows you. We even call it a head whip if they do it quickly, which is a sign of concern. And what people often do when they have a cat that does this, and this is all, by the way, a prelude to the cat potentially getting hissy, swatty, or nippy. Mm-hmm. And what people often do is they push. They're like, oh, come on, sweet pea, let me pet you. Mm-hmm. And then the cat gets more upset and there's a swat. I once had a client ask me or tell me, I asked her, did the cat give her any symptoms of confliction? The ones I just mentioned. And she looked at me and she said, oh, yes, all of them.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so what do you do when your cat does this? She goes, oh, I try and comfort her by petting her more.
Ah.
Well, that obviously, didn't end well. And so I gave the analogy, I wanted to kind of personalize what the communication is that we're having with our cat so that we can, even though I don't want to humanize a cat, right? And we can talk about that in terms of respecting the fact that they're a different species. I still wanted to put it in human terms so they understood what they're doing, what the conversation is with their cat. And so I said, imagine that you and your partner are having this conversation, right? I'll use my hands. Imagine if you're just listening to this, two hands kind of squawking to each other. And I say something to my partner that's annoying. And my partner says, no, don't talk to me that way. And they start wagging their finger, and that I don't want to hear that sort of conversation. That becomes the analogy for the wagging tail, which is, the swishy tail. And let's say I'm not sensitive to how this conversation is going, and I push, right? And I'm kind of joking when I say this, but imagine my partner gets so upset that the swishy finger, the finger wag becomes a slap, whack, and I get slapped across the face, which is the swat. Mm-hmm. If you were having this, you would never want to actively. Jen, you're back. I lost you for a second, and you're muted. You're muted.
I have no idea what happened. Everything disappeared and then came back again. Says
I became the host, but you're still recording, so we're all good.
Okay, good. Okay, so
I'm just going to back up slightly and continue, which is to say you would never intentionally have this conversation with your partner. And if you unwittingly had this conversation, hopefully you would say something like, oh, honey, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to talk to you this way. And by the way, here's a piece of chocolate to help you feel better, right? And your partner would say, okay, you were annoying, but thank you for apologizing. And I really like this chocolate.
Yeah.
And that would be a reset, right? A conversation reset. So what I'm suggesting is that if you're having a conversation with your cat and the conversation is not going well because they are becoming conflicted, it's like the human conversation. And what I would hope you would take from that is a desire to have the conversation reset. And the way to do that is at the first sign that the cat is overstimulating. And granted, there are some that don't give any warning signs. That's more challenging. But at the first sign, you immediately stop the interaction. You speak gently and quietly. And while we're not going to offer our cat a piece of chocolate, that would not be good for them, we can offer them a treat. And that's giving a positive end to that conversation. It's ending on a positive note. And what we're hoping is that we're going to teach the cat that if you get slightly annoyed with me, things quickly get better. And significantly better because we get a tasty snack out of it. Yes. And the goal is that we can extend the length of petting because we're ultimately reducing anxiety and feeling conflicted by removing the negative part of the conversation from the conversation so that they kind of forget that it was even there. Yeah. And that we just do this kind of full reset.
And a good reminder to people that people might say, well, if this is bad behavior and I'm giving a treat, aren't I rewarding the bad behavior?
Right. And I've actually gotten that question. And imagine, would you ever pick a fight with your spouse or partner in order to get a piece of chocolate?
No.
Right. You just say, hey, can I have a piece of chocolate?
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
It's not a reward.
It's not, that's right. It's positive. It's a positive reinforcement. And I think that if people can look at it that way and see it, that it's not, cats are not like dogs. They're very different. Cats do not respond well to negative reinforcement, period. You can't do that with a cat. You can't it's different. You've got to handle them in a different, very clever way, just like you're suggesting. I think is fantastic. And the underlining message here when we're dealing with cats that are feeling overstimulated is boundaries. It's paying attention to boundaries. Your cat's saying, hey, back off. And you're going, no, I don't want to. And then it's going to have to do what it's got to do to make its message loud and clear for you. So, really, the more you can think about the boundaries and respect them, it's actually the stronger the relationship you'll have with your cat. I find that if you have a cat and you can tell me what you think of this, Stephen, that's maybe not as affectionate as you want. Everybody wants a cat that's really affectionate. And sometimes they're not. You don't really know that if you get them as a kitten, how they're going to be. And I find that if you ignore them in terms of don't go at them, kitty, 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 I love you, I want you. If you do that, they just want to run away. But if you're like, yeah, no, I know you're there, but I'm not, they find that intriguing. They're a little bit more, well, what else you got going on? Who are you? And next thing you know, they're coming and they're rubbing against you, and you can, oh no, I'm not into cats. Oh no, I don't like cats. So don't you ever find when someone walks in a home and they say, I hate cats, or they say, I'm deathly allergic to cats? Who's the first person your cat goes to? The person who hates cats, or the one who doesn't want anything to do with the cat, is the first person the cat goes to. Do you find that?
Yeah, absolutely. The cat is being allowed to approach on his or her own terms.
Yes.
And some cats actively want to make that decision to approach, and they can't make the decision if you make the decision for them.
Right.
Right. Then you've taken the decision away. And I'm a big believer in providing choice to our animals, cats and dogs, and providing or asking for consent. Yes. We do something with dogs called consent for petting. And that's asking for it. And then understanding and respecting that a dog may actually withdraw consent at some point with body language. It doesn't have to be super obvious. You just need to be attuned to it. So yeah, a cat who's more independent may become intrigued. And then come up to you and ask for some interactions. Something else, though, I would like to mention as a kind of corollary to that is the idea that cats who interact with us a lot are in a nice way, are frequently in what I call the kitten-mother relationship. Kittens ask their mothers for things like food, obviously. They ask for attention, comfort, and maybe sometimes even some play. And they do this by meowing, purring, maybe chirping, rubbing. And cats typically, the studies have shown that cats that respond to a person more than another person in a home is because that person is listening to the cat, is giving the cat what the cat is asking for. And the cat is naturally asking for more of it because it works. I get treats, I get snacks, I get petting, I get play. I'm going to go to the person who gives me that. I don't know if I've mentioned this in a previous episode or not, but adult cats typically don't meow to each other. They make other sounds, chirping, yowling, caterwauling, hissing, growling, but meowing is not super common. But kittens meow to their mothers, and adult cats meow to us.
Yes.
And helping a cat get into that relationship with us is a way of helping them become less aloof because we're more attentive to their needs.
Yeah. Yeah. I can think of my own cats, and we have one big fluffy orange cat that's named Sunny. And you were mentioned earlier about cats being nurturers, that some are more nurturing than others, regardless of their gender. And he's a male cat, but he's like a mom cat. When we get a kitten in, we've had several kittens since we've had him. He'll lay there and let the kitten just attack him and kick at him. And he just sits there and takes it. And then the odd time he'll rough and play with them, and they sleep together. Like, he just is amazing, but everybody wants to hug him and squeeze him. Everybody wants to pick him up and just love him because he's such a nice cat. But you can see it in his face. He's just like, oh my God, these people, leave me alone. But I never do that to him. I don't even know if we've had him 3 years. I don't even think I've ever picked him up. And I
Wow.
generally let him be. And he comes to me. And when he wants that love, and when he does, I'm all there for him. And we have this great moment together, and he'll be overly affectionate, and it doesn't last long, but we have this totally different relationship that everybody else says it's so weird how different your relationship is. And I said, that's because he doesn't have to run away from me. He's, it's, I respect his boundaries and he respects mine sometimes, except for my couch when he wants to scratch the couch. But it's really important. It really just, and understanding that cat. On the other hand, we have another cat. He's a kitten. He'll be a year this summer. You can pick him up and hold him like a baby and shove him. My neighbor's kid shoves him down her shirt and carries him around like he's in a backpack. And he will put up with anything, and he loves it. He doesn't get up and run away. He's like, all right, more. Like, he's just phenomenal with that. He's almost too much. But again, it's paying attention. If he was a cat that's going to start biting and scratching, you're not going to want to do it. He's telling you, I don't like this. So I think a lot of cat owners can talk about this, I pet my cat and then it all of a sudden bites me and stuff, and they don't understand what it's about. And I'm hoping that this has given them clarity on that, because it's a very common thing. I think you have a lot of people who talk about it. I know I do. So I'm hoping that this clears this up for them and gives them, now they can pay attention to that body language.
Yep. And, I'll just briefly mention on a related note, there's another type of stress-induced petting behaviors that's different from overstimulation, called petting-induced aggression. And this is cats who don't really tolerate being pet at all, or there's a body part that they don't enjoy having be touched.
Yes.
But the treatment is still the same. Respect the boundaries. Don't get them to the point of feeling upset. Offer treats, and see if you can extend or make that improvement over time.
And letting people know, our old cat, Charlie, he had a spot on his back before he even broke his back. He probably always had a weakness spot in his back, but he could not stand being touched right at the base of his tail. Some cats love it, right? You give them the old itchy scratchy right at the base of the tail. They love it. Soon as your hand would go near it, he would turn and bite. He was the spin and bite right away. He gave you no other warning. It was like, and I would have to tell people going near him, he was so loving, and he would maul you. He was, but the second you touch that part of him, it's over. And so I'd have to tell people, don't touch him there. He doesn't like it there. Right. And you feel silly saying it, but it's saving them from bleeding.
Right. And that's classic petting induced aggression. And it's not his fault. It felt badly for him.
He never liked it. And, but there was the spot we'd find his shoulders he loved. So that's where you pay attention, and that's where you give what he wants. And, great relationship when you can understand each other better. Amazing. This has been great. This has been very helpful, I think, for people to understand these behaviors and what's happening. And anything else you want to add to this this topic?
I don't think so. For cats that I'll just mention that for cats that are environmentally nervous, we just want to provide quiet enrichment and routine and safety, and allow them to come out of their shell as much as they can. And respect the fact that there are things that are going to make them scared, and to try and avoid those sorts of interactions as much as possible. And for cats that are under socialized, this is usually a kitten. In terms of people and cats, it's usually with kittens, and there is a process of getting them through that. And maybe I can put a link. We can add a link later on a good document on how to help under socialized kittens.
Okay, amazing. That would be great. Well, this has been another awesome cat chat. I've enjoyed it, and give us a like, subscribe, share our videos, and get this out to the world so we can help as many people as we can, because we love to help animals and humans live in harmony. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Jenny. She's waited patiently for that door to magically open. So I'm sure she's been good, being patient. I see her keep looking up at the door handle. It's like, how she even know? She knows that somehow it opens from up there. Amazing.
It's shocking.
Yeah.
But thank you, Jen. A pleasure as always to spend this time with you.
Take care. We'll see you next time.
All right. See ya.